How to know if you're truly God's chosen. 7 biblical signs most people miss. What if everything you've been told about being chosen by God is incomplete? What if it's not about feeling special, but about surviving things that should have broken you? Right now, many people believe that if God has chosen you, your life will be easier, clearer, more blessed on the outside. But when reality hits, rejection, confusion, silent seasons, they begin to doubt everything. If God is with me, why does my life feel like this? That tension is real. And if you don't understand it, you may walk away from something God is actually doing in you. But the Bible tells a very different story. In the Old Testament, Joseph was chosen and betrayed. David was chosen and hunted. In the New Testament, Jesus himself says, "You did not choose me, but I chose you," and then immediately warns of hatred and opposition. There is a pattern here most people miss, and once you see it, you will never read your life the same way again. So before you assume God is distant or that you've been overlooked, what if the very things confusing you are actually the evidence? Stay with me, because the next part might change how you see your entire story. Number 1. You didn't find God first. He drew you to himself. If you look back honestly, you may realize something unsettling. Your story with God didn't begin when you decided to be serious about him. It began long before that, in moments you didn't fully understand, when something quietly pulled you away from certain paths, or when conviction showed up uninvited. You weren't initiating that. You were responding. Jesus makes this unmistakably clear when he says, "You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit." John 15:16. That statement removes the illusion of control. It means your relationship with God is not rooted in your effort to reach him, but in his decision to reach you first. Even your desire to seek him is in a sense evidence that he has already been drawing you. The Old Testament echoes this same pattern. When God chose Israel, he didn't base it on their strength or righteousness. He said plainly, "The Lord your God has chosen you, not because you were more in number than any other people, but because the Lord loves you." Deuteronomy 7:6-8. In other words, the foundation of being chosen is not performance. It is God's will and love. That truth can feel uncomfortable, because it means you cannot take credit for what God has started in you. This also explains why, no matter how far you may have drifted at times, something kept pulling you back. Not always dramatically. Sometimes it was just a quiet unrest, a sense that you couldn't fully belong anywhere else. That tension is not weakness. It may be evidence that your life is being guided by something beyond your own decisions. And if that is true, then the question shifts. It's no longer just about whether you chose God, but about what he sees in you that others may not even recognize yet. Number 2. People overlook you, but God doesn't. That leads to something many people struggle to understand. Why does it feel like others don't see your value? Why are you passed over, underestimated, or even ignored, while others seem to move ahead so easily? From a human perspective, it feels unfair. But Scripture shows that this pattern is not unusual for those God is shaping. When the prophet Samuel went to anoint the next king, he expected someone strong, impressive, and obvious. One by one, the sons of Jesse stood before him, but God rejected them all. Then came David, the youngest, a shepherd, not even considered important enough to be invited at first. And God said, "Do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, for the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." 1 Samuel 16:7. What people overlook, God examines deeply. What people dismiss, God may be preparing. This can create a quiet tension in your life. On one hand, you know what you carry, your convictions, your hunger for truth, your desire to walk with God. On the other hand, it feels like no one else recognizes it. But being unseen by people does not mean you are unseen by God. In fact, throughout the Bible, God often chooses those who are hidden, not those already elevated. This is not about encouraging isolation or pride. It's about understanding that God's process does not follow human validation. There are seasons where He develops your character in places where no one is applauding, where no one is noticing, and in those hidden places, something real is being formed, something that cannot be built in the spotlight. But this kind of hidden preparation rarely feels comfortable. In fact, it often comes with pressure, confusion, and moments that test what's inside you, which leads directly to the next sign. Number 3. Your life has been marked by trials that changed you. Those hidden seasons are rarely peaceful. More often, they are filled with pressure, situations that stretch you, expose you, and force you to confront what's really inside your heart. And if you're honest, some of those moments didn't just challenge you, they changed you. The Bible does not hide this reality. It says plainly, "Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all." Psalm 34:19. Notice the order. Afflictions first, then deliverance. Being aligned with God does not remove difficulty. It places you in a process where difficulty becomes part of your formation. The question is not whether trials come, but what they produce in you. James takes it even further. Count it all joy when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. James 1:2-3. That kind of perspective is not natural. It means trials are not interruptions to your life. They are instruments shaping it. They reveal your weaknesses, but also build endurance, patience, and dependence on God in a way comfort never could. When you look back, you may see moments that felt unbearable at the time. Confusion, loss, disappointment, even silence from God. But somehow, you didn't come out the same. Maybe you became more grounded, more aware, more sensitive to truth. That shift is not accidental. It reflects a pattern seen over and over again in Scripture. God forms His people through what they endure, not just what they receive. And yet there is something even deeper hidden inside those trials. Because in many cases, it's not just that hardship changed you, it's that what was meant to harm you somehow became part of something good. Number 4. What tried to break you ended up shaping you. If you trace those trials carefully, you may notice a pattern that doesn't make sense at first. The very moments that seemed designed to break you, betrayal, injustice, loss, did not have the final word. Instead, they became part of something that shaped your perspective, your strength, even your relationship with God. Scripture gives one of the clearest examples through Joseph. After being betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and imprisoned, he finally stands before the same people who meant to destroy him and says, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good." Genesis 50:20. That statement is not emotional, it is theological. It reveals that God's sovereignty can work through human wrongdoing without endorsing it. This does not mean every painful event is good in itself. The betrayal was still betrayal. The injustice was still real. But God did not waste any of it. Over time, what was intended to harm Joseph became part of the process that positioned him exactly where he needed to be. The pain was not erased, it was repurposed. When this pattern appears in your own life, it often takes time to recognize. At first, all you see is the damage, but later you begin to notice how certain experiences changed your thinking, deepened your discernment, or redirected your path. You may not have chosen those moments, but they contributed to who you are becoming. That does not happen by accident. This is one of the more difficult signs to accept, because it requires trusting that God is at work even when circumstances are not. But if what tried to break you has instead shaped you, then your story may be unfolding under a purpose you could not see at the time. And that raises another question. Why does something inside you keep pulling you back toward God, no matter where you go? Number 5. You feel an inner pull that keeps leading you back to God. That question matters, because not everything that draws a person toward God comes from external influence. Sometimes it comes from within, quiet, persistent, and difficult to ignore. You may have tried to focus on other things, to move in a different direction, or even to distance yourself spiritually. And yet something keeps bringing you back. The Bible describes this not as coincidence, but as guidance. Paul writes, "For all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God," Romans 8:14. That leading is not always dramatic. It often shows up as conviction when something is wrong, a sense of direction when you feel lost, or an internal resistance when you begin to drift too far. It is subtle, but it is consistent. The Old Testament reflects this idea in a different way. When God called Jeremiah, he said, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you, and before you were born I consecrated you." Jeremiah 1:5. That statement reveals that God's involvement in a person's life can begin long before they are aware of it. So when you feel drawn back toward Him, it may not be the start of something new. It may be the continuation of something that has always been there. This inner pull does not mean perfection. You may still struggle, hesitate, or question, but there is a difference between someone who occasionally thinks about God and someone who feels guided, corrected, and drawn over time. That ongoing movement, however quiet, is something Scripture consistently connects to God's presence in a person's life. And yet, following that pull often creates tension with the world around you, because as you move closer to God, not everyone will understand it, and that leads directly to the next sign. Number 6. You experience rejection for living differently. That tension begins to show itself in your relationships. As you follow that inner pull toward God, your priorities start to shift, sometimes quietly, sometimes visibly, and without trying to create distance, you may notice that distance begins to form anyway. Not everyone understands the changes happening in you, and some may even resist them. Jesus addressed this directly, without softening it. He said, "If the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you, because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world. Therefore the world hates you." John 15:18-19. This is not about seeking conflict or assuming opposition. It is about recognizing that alignment with God can create a difference that others feel, even if they cannot explain it. This pattern is not new. It appears early in Scripture. Abel's offering was accepted by God, and Cain's was not. The result was not reflection, but hostility. Paul later explains this dynamic. "But just as at that time he who was born according to the flesh persecuted him who was born according to the Spirit, so also it is now." Galatians 4:29. The tension between what is spiritual and what is not has always existed. Rejection in this sense is not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it is subtle, being misunderstood, excluded, or quietly dismissed. And it is important to be clear, not all rejection is meaningful. The Bible does not support arrogance or unnecessary division, But when the separation comes as a result of living according to what you believe is right before God, it fits a pattern that Scripture acknowledges. Over time, this kind of rejection forces a deeper question: what truly defines your life? Because while others may not always understand your direction, there is something more objective that begins to emerge, something that can be observed, not just felt, and that is what your life is producing. Number 7. Your life is slowly producing spiritual fruit. That question, what is your life producing, brings everything into focus. Because beyond feelings, beyond circumstances, the Bible points to something observable, not perfection, not instant transformation, but a gradual change that unfolds over time. If God is truly at work in a person, it will eventually become visible. Jesus said it plainly: "You will recognize them by their fruits," Matthew 7:16. He wasn't referring to outward success or appearance, but to the evidence of a life being shaped by truth. Fruit takes time. It grows slowly, often unnoticed at first. In the same way, spiritual fruit develops beneath the surface before it becomes clear in how you think, respond, and live. The Apostle John adds another layer: "And by this we know that we have come to know him, if we keep his commandments." 1 John 2:3. This is not about flawless obedience, but about direction, a growing desire to align with what God says, even when it is difficult, a sensitivity to right and wrong that wasn't there before. These are not self-produced changes. They reflect something deeper taking root. When you look at your life honestly, you may still see flaws, struggles, and inconsistencies. But alongside those, is there growth? Are you more aware, more convicted, more drawn toward what is true than you were before? That slow, steady movement matters. It is the kind of change that cannot be manufactured by outward effort alone. And this final sign brings clarity to everything else. Because being chosen is not proven by what you claim, or even by what you go through, but by what your life is becoming over time, which leads us to the deeper conclusion about what it truly means to belong to God. Conclusion: the truth about being God's chosen. When you step back and look at everything together, a clearer picture begins to form. Being chosen by God is not about standing above others. It's about being shaped in ways that are often hidden, uncomfortable, and deeply personal. It is not confirmed by ease, recognition, or even constant certainty. It is revealed through patterns, how your life has guided, tested, redirected, and slowly transformed over time. You may not have all the answers. You may still wrestle with doubt, still face challenges, still feel misunderstood. But if you can see that your life is moving, however slowly, toward truth, toward growth, toward God, then something real is happening beneath the surface, something intentional. So instead of asking if you feel chosen, look at what is unfolding in your life, because the evidence is not in a single moment. It is in the direction of your entire story. And if that direction is leading you closer to God, then you are not lost. You are being led.